Let me introduce our co-host, David Clifford. David is a business agility coach and consultant with Innodev. Innodev specialises in enterprise-level digital transformation and portfolio management solutions. As part of Innodev's leadership team, Dave helps organisations build greater levels of resilience and agility in an increasingly complex world. David also co-hosts a podcast on agile ways of working called Rethink Everything. I will share this link at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Dave, and I'll dip in and out throughout, and then we'll be back again at the end to close the session. I'll be available for any technical questions throughout. So take it away, Dave.
Thank you, Dan, for that invitation. Oh, God. All right. And Renee, who's on the thing, is actually my co-host on that podcast. All right. Where do we start? Well, let's start by sharing this presentation. Can everyone see that on the screen?
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah, good. That's good stuff. Okay. Yeah, so why have I done this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that I've got, bugged by my neighbor Dan. He's, catches me every time I go to work and in the evening coming home, and he's like, "Hey, Dave, you need to do the talk. You need to come out and do it." And then he started dropping over fruit and stuff. So now I have to do this talk so he'll stop dropping fruit over to my house. The other reason, and it's pretty much kind of why I'm doing this talk, is that a couple of weeks ago we were doing a podcast with Lisa Atkins, who is, if people don't know, you can put her name in Google and look it up. She's the Agile Coach's coach, as they call her. She's an author of a couple of books on Agile coaching. And we're talking around the topic of moving forward and what we could take out of COVID and make a positive of it, right? While we'd hit pause in a little bit of our work life. We had a lot of good conversation, but the question remained, what was next? And when we were discussing it, we're going back, we're kind of saying, well, maybe we should do something. And maybe we should push that positivity out into the world. And my co-host, who's on the call tonight, she came up with this concept of a move forward. And what was behind that move forward is bringing what we've learned over this period and looking to change the workplace by continuing to embrace what we liked about working from home, right? Whether it be the work-life balance that we had. Oh, my screen is not moved. Yeah, sorry about that. Whether it be the work-life balance, or maybe it's a new habit or practice that we start doing. Maybe it was a mindfulness activity. Maybe it was just going for a walk, or feel the sun in your face. And then we thought, from when I thought about it, I said, well, we can tie this back to the Agile values, all right? And I thought that's what I want to share with you tonight. So before I share, I would like if you could go to this website and use that code. So as Dan explained,
I'm going to put it in the chat right now for you, Dave. So for everybody, it's just gone in the chat. And you tell me when you want me to share my screen, Dave, as well.
Yeah, you can. I'll stop sharing and you take over.
Do you want me to share?
Yes, please.
No problem. Okay. Sharing right now.
Okay. So you're gonna have to do a little bit of work here, guys, to help me out to understand where we are. So the question is, what do you feel that your organization values more? So you should get up in front of you some sliders, and you can pick where they are. Then you just go through them. Yeah, good. Everyone's getting it, and submit. Cool.
Has everyone voted?
I think there's still a couple. The number in you'll see a number in the bottom of the people who have voted.
Oh, four. Come on, guys. There's about 20 there's 18 people in here. So, there you go. 7, 8. Well, there's minus us two, there's 16 people. So we're halfway there.
Wow, boy, yeah. Can we make it to the 16? I feel like I'm in the Eurovision or something.
I reckon it's.
Can we get the votes from the Brisbane panel, please?
We've only got 7 more people, so just go to that link, just quickly type in the code, and let's just get where you guys are coming from. What do you feel that your organisation values more? And is this at the moment, Dave? Is this in light of the current situation of COVID, or just generally? Like, what's the context?
We had a feeling is over the last couple of months.
Okay, so in relation to COVID.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think someone else looking for the Menti code. Looking for the Menti code, it's 674870. It's in the chat.
Oh, Matt's driving, so please don't do that, Matt. Please don't do that. We don't want to encourage you to Menti and drive. Okay, I think 10. That's a good number, Dave. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting. Well, I've got we've got a good breakdown there. It's interesting that it's in the middle. I'm slowly moving up for people over resources, and that's one thing in the Agile community that we're quite keen on, that you talk to people as people, right, not as resources. And that's one of Renee's bugbears. It's interesting that we're going to more on the adaptability over the predictability. As an interesting one, or maybe we'll touch on that moving forward. Again, I expected that short-term planning wouldn't be something that I don't value it. And I'll talk to that a bit later. And that's a surprising one about early learning over delivery. It's probably kind of leads to that we've got a lot of Agile practitioners potentially on this call. So I better be careful I get my facts right. Yeah, I'll go back to sharing, Dan.
Okay, just out of adaptability over predictability, has that been that would be very much a response, I'm assuming, from people going over to Zoom and remote work. Would that be right, in your opinion?
I think it's more around how the organizations have adapted over the wall, right? Some of them are quite rigid and stop projects, where some have seen it as an opportunity to test the remote working, the disaster recovery, their BCPs that they have. They all those things sit nice somewhere, but it's really until I think the last couple of months that they've actually been tested, right? So I think that adaptability, that workplace where they've actually gone, oh shit, we now need to remote work. We now need to be flexible. We now need to understand that people are at home. We may have to change the way we work. So it was interesting that was quite high. But I'll probably touch on that. I'm going to touch on that a little bit. All right, I'll go back to sharing my screen. Where are you going? Okay, so I don't know how many people have seen this before. Right, and this is the opening statement of the Agile Manifesto, which came from 2001 in Utah, where about 19 Agile practitioners got together from all different, from Scrum, from XP, some Kanban guys there as well. And what for me when I look at this, and I reflect on this often, right? Because to me, it's the actual mindset, right? I think we've kind of overcomplicated Agile a little bit. And we kind of lost focus of what the actual value and principles mean. So for me, when I look at this, 2 words jump out for me, right? That's uncovering. They chose these words, right? These guys talked about this for a couple of days, and I reckon there was a lot of going back and forth and to and froing. But they chose these words specifically, right? They didn't say we have discovered, right? Or we know. They said uncovering and using those values, and that's how we'll do it, right? The other word that stands out for me is the helping. And that's, again, pretty much down to the Agile and teams, is actually helping one another, all right? Sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it, and looking after your teammates. And it's just getting back to that bit of basics, right? Now, Alistair Coburn, who was one of the signatories on this, he's even made it a lot clearer, right, for me. He has this heart of Agile, and he's broken it down into just 4 key things, right? Collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. And that's pretty simple. And I think you can just apply that anywhere, right? That's the mindset thing, not a software only or an IT only thing, right? And that's why I've put in bold better ways of developing software. You know, why, right, primarily, sorry?
I was just going to say, could you repeat those 4 things again? It was collaborate. I just saw a lot of people start taking notes. Sorry, Dave.
Okay. Yeah, so Alistair Coburn, if you look up Heart of Agile, he actually did a talk in the uni about 2 or 3 years ago around this. And his 2IC, Soledad, was over, and she was at the B First in Adelaide recently, and she did a talk. But yeah, so he's basically just broken it down to these, and he has a special symbol that has the heart in the middle. He says
got it.
Agile's
Just
all
sent
about.
that through.
Yeah, as collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. Very simple, 4 things, right? And if you do that daily or weekly, I think it is that mindset, right? It's not about a process or tools or a framework or all the other stuff, right? It's just about how you think about things and how you approach the world. So again, I'm going to touch on it later, but that applies to everything. That's, to me, you could just take the software out of there, right? Better ways of developing, of what, you know, delivering outcomes. Better ways of, you know, washing your car, right? You know, it's better ways of working, right? You know, I think as we've, you know, we've got a bit of a bias to that, or some people do, that Agile only belongs in the IT world. And I think if a mindset doesn't belong in one particular place, it belongs all over your organization. And when you think of that mindset, you know, and you use the values that we're going to talk about in a second, you know, they lead to certain behaviors, and that's the behaviors that we want to encourage, right? So these are the 4 values, right? The individuals over interactions, process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. And there's a subtlety here in this, what they've put here, right? And I said they chose these words really well to get people to challenge some assumptions, right? And some of the things that they held. And what's actually missing from this thing is what's actually written underneath that, right? And what they say is, that is why there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. And again, they didn't say we you know, do individual interactions instead of, all right? They said over, right? And they use that word value really well, I think, by saying, yeah, we value them, right? There is times when you'll need to use comprehensive documentation, right? If you're developing something, you know, a space shuttle or something like that, right? That will be required. You know, there will be manuals and safety stuff required, right? You can't just say we just deliver it. We'll deliver a space shuttle and not give you a user manual. You know, I know I'm a bit of an extreme example, but that's, you know, it is over, right? It's, again, it's a trade-off of what is actually delivering the value, and is it actually required. So I'll kind of go into the first one, and it's individual interactions over the process and tools. And this is, to me, you know, this goes back to what Alistair said, right? Collaborate. Is people are critical to achieving the outcomes, all right? Scrum is a people pattern. Its success is from the people, right? Not from the process and the framework. It's the people actually, you know, doing the work. And they must be empowered to get the work done wherever they feel is best, right? And that empowerment is a very important part of any Agile team or any Agile organization. The problem is when that work is driven by processes and tools, okay? That then teams become less responsive to change and less likely to deliver those outcomes. So how does that apply when we talk about COVID? Well, I think to understand an individual, you must see the whole person, right? And I like this quote from Abraham Lincoln, right? He said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." Right? And what he meant by that is, right, maybe I just don't like him because I don't understand his point of view, and maybe I need to understand that better, or maybe I don't like him because I don't understand the whole person. So what's happened, I think, pre-COVID, was our workplaces were getting so busy, right, and we actually didn't get to know our fellow workers as well as we would have liked to. And for me, it's an important part of being a leader to know the teams and the people who work for you. And what's happened over the last few months, there's been a shift to seeing the whole person outside of the workplace, with the, probably here in my background, where the kids are getting ready for bed, there's pets, barking, there might be some disturbance in the background, postman ringing the door, things like that. And I think that's probably helped develop a more tolerance to the family life and try and promote a better work-life balance. People are not just working 8 hours a day anymore. They're probably more working to outcomes, right? Because we know, and an example, when the kids were home doing homeschooling, it was impossible, right? I've got 3 kids. It was impossible to homeschool them and work within office hours. So we had to kind of work to outcomes, right? I think what we also, you'll be able to choose when you work, and your leadership understanding that, taking that time with family that you really didn't have before. And what I'd noticed is that, meetings started with a personal chat. I think people miss that little chat around the water cooler. And rather than going straight into business, they had a little chat, right? How was your day? What's happening today? What's new? Before they actually got into the work. The other constant is, as we know, we're in workplace, we get absolutely caned by meetings, right? We get these meetings back to back, right? And you can't do that on video conferencing, right? I've been on a 4-hour workshop today. It was draining, just staring at the screen for 4 hours. So I think people are beginning to understand, and they're giving themselves a break in between meetings, right? It's just not sustainable to do 8 hours of video calls and video meetings. Even with some of the training we found, we have to take breaks every hour, 10, 15-minute breaks, just so people can get up and move around and just break that contact from looking at the screen. The other thing I found, and I think this is a really good thing, is that there's been an uplift in team health checks and check-ins from leadership. Now, I've noticed this over a couple of organizations that probably, you probably wouldn't hear from your leader, for weeks, and now they're checking in and making sure that everything's okay. And I hope that, this is my main point, I hope that continues, right? Because we're actually valuing the individual over process and tools here, right? And I feel that, if you want to be a better leader, you must embrace what makes us truly human, right? Which is social connection and empathy for others. And by doing them, you become a better leader. You shift from that command and control, where it's all about the tasks and getting the tasks done, to becoming more outcome focused. It comes from a more individual focus to a more relationship focus. You become a more networked leader, right? Because you're building up all those relationships. And because you're doing that, your interactions with your team are not seen as being transactional. They're actually to be seen as personal, right? And that's, builds that relationship, which is what I think we need moving forward, right? I think one of the things I felt is that sense of community, that's probably been a little bit missing from the workplace, has been more prevalent on the video conferences and chats that I have seen, right? I think more people are interacting. Okay, before I move on to the next value, I have a question. I'm going to use those chat storm, is that what we call it, Dan? I'm a little bit new to this as well. And the question I'm going to ask...
That's awesome. Do it. I've been pushing Dave to do chat storm. All right, guys, we're going to do a chat storm. So basically, just straight into the chat, post your answers. Okay. Go for it, Dave.
So over the last few months, do you feel that your leaders have got to know you more as a person?
No from Paul. Paul says no. Stephen? Aki, I'm watching you. She's a good answer from Aki. I think I've been bolder in sharing, so yes, from Pia. Manish says leaders, question mark, not really. Amit says, not for me, with a smiley face. Amit, does that suggest you're the leader? I'm just curious there. And also, guys, if you have got yes, maybe you could pop an example in that demonstrates such over the last few months, or something you might have done, or something that your leader has done to show greater empathy for you. Be really good. How about yourself, Dave? Maybe you could give us an example, especially because I know that within Innodev, it's been quite disruptive in terms of the consulting world.
It has been in the consulting world. It has been disruptive. Some clients have shut down shop completely, and other clients have just ticked over. It's not a it wasn't just a pebble in the road to them. But our leadership have tried to do the best they can. Renee, she was part of an initiative outside and inside Innodev to get webinars, check in, to try and help people, just to talk about what's going on in their life. And I think that was quite successful. I think we have one every Friday that Renee hosts, and we just get people to come in and ask a question, how are they going, what's happening, and get people to tell their story. And I think that's been quite successful. And we've done that inside Innodev internally as well. And then people have been checking in.
So Aaron's just shared he had a meeting that was mostly his manager asking for interesting non-work stories, which was good. Arki says regular check-ins asking for life outside of work, and I can tell you, so Arki is part of the More Space team, and I've been open and transparent with Arki, just telling her how much of a challenge it's been as a leader to delegate and make time for the team. And I've really, Peter joining us, I've really had to make it automatic because I care very deeply about the people I work with. And it's very easy, especially when you're sitting at home in Zoom and on your Zoom meetings, and then with your family, to actually make that time and make that space and be intentional in terms of focusing on those people. Pia was just saying that she was feeling disconnected and isolated at home. So her boss set up a connection with others doing the same job stuck in Melbourne and feeling similar. Since then, we have really collaborated, and my outcomes have been enriched. So yeah, like from both sides of the coin, it's hard. I think as well, just to riff on that before you move on, Dave, it's also something that I feel as a leader that I really appreciate when the team reach out to me and ask me as well. So I think it should be, I don't think it should just always be one way. So just putting that out there. So Paul, just before we move on, Paul, while my direct manager had no contact with me, my peers and I contacted our wider team twice a week, bringing a lot of social interaction into our meetings. Amit said, we have all meetings and ceremonies through video calls. That helps develop a connect from the team. And Paul agrees mentoring is not one way. All right, Dave, I'm going to hand back over to you. Thank you, everybody, for being involved there and sharing and being vulnerable. Yeah, you're all fantastic.
There's some positive stuff coming out of there, okay? Even you, Dan, right, as a leader. You surprised me.
Hey, I can see you laughing. And Aaron.
onto the next value. And again, I touched on this earlier, just working software over comprehensive documentation. And people use this all the time. You know what I mean? I've used it as a developer myself when I was developing, right? I use this. Yeah. Well, we're delivering the software. I haven't got time for the documentation. You'll get that just in time, right? You'll get it when you need it, and it'll be as lightweight as possible, right? Because I like doing development work and I like coding. I don't like writing technical specs and documents around that and implementation plans and all that rubbish. I prefer to do the coding. So that's, I like that problem solving. But what I was saying here, and what this value is actually saying is, right, we streamline the documentation. We're not eliminating it. We just see where the value is, right? And the reason why it came up here, because documenting everything, it was causing long delays and wait time in the development. It was stopping things moving through the value chain because people would start putting stage gates and people would need certain documents done before they could actually move to the next phase of development and or testing or into UAT and into prod. And the reason for what I would call it is the and we go back to that value is working software or features, really delivering a feature is the only true measurement, right? Of progress being made to the outcome. Because documentation rarely delivers value. I've seen, 100-page BRDs that, they just sat on SharePoint and maybe never referenced. It's where the value is, and you needed a user story, a couple of user stories to stick in Jira over creating a BRD. What I touched on earlier was right, why the guys who developed this Agile Manifesto come up with these values. They did work on software. That was their main occupation, and from those backgrounds. It's probably led to that bias that Agile is only for IT. Right? It should stay in IT, and actually, to me, it's more should be in the business. If I was to take it a step forward, I don't even see a difference between the business and IT. They're both working for the same company, trying to achieve the same outcome, right? So there shouldn't be any separation. It shouldn't be a them and us. And again, what I'm trying to convey here is this is a mindset based on values and principles, and it doesn't sit in one space. You can apply it anywhere, and you could change, delivery of outcomes over comprehensive documentation, customer satisfaction, right, over comprehensive documentation, and that makes more sense. Maybe might resonate with people outside of non-agile environments or non-IT environments even. And I have come across this, right? And every time I say it, I get, Agile's for those ITs, it's for the developers, right? And they come up with that, they already have made an assumption already that, I don't have anything to do with it. And what my response to that is, I go, do you like coffee? Right? And I let them linger for a little bit. Okay, look puzzled on their face. I like that puzzlement. And then I go, let's go for a coffee. And I sit them down. I said, listen, what's this? I'm going to show you the most agile team I've ever seen. And they're like, we're sitting in a coffee shop, mate. I'm beginning to worry about your sanity. And I said, well, let's look at this, right? Look at the guys working behind the counter, right? That's an agile team to me. So, right? And I go, what? Well, they've got a constantly changing backlog, right? They're getting orders in all the time, right? The delivery of outcomes to the customers, right? They've got T-shaped skills, right? They'll switch to where the bottlenecks are within their value chain, right? If they need people to take more orders, they go to there. If the person needs to make more coffees, then the person will come off the register and make them more coffees, right? If they need to make a milkshake or whatever else, they switch. They have T-shaped skills. They might not be the best barista, right? But still, they're getting that flow through the value chain. And they don't work to how many coffees they can produce in an hour, right? They don't work like that. They just work of how fast they can deliver value to their customers, okay? And then when there's downtime, they actually start prepping early, let's put on, make sure there's lids for the cups or, cleaning the surface and doing all that. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a barista that knows anything much about Agile. And they probably never heard of the Manifesto, but they work in a way that relates to those values. And why is that? And why is that? Well, it's because that's the way humans work naturally. We naturally work like that. It's just that organizations have created hierarchy and structure and bureaucracy to stop us working like that. And that's what Agile is trying to break down a little bit. So as I say, it's like what's post-COVID, right? What have we learned? Is that to increase the agility within the organization, that needs to, that agile mindset, or maybe growth mindset, or whatever you want to call it, needs to move and not be held back by that bias and assumption that it's only for IT. It can move into HR. It can move into procurement. You're actually, what you should be doing is engaging your people in changing the organization or the way they work to testing and learning and adaptation, right? And that's pretty simple. It's back to those 4 words that Alice said, right? Collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. Again, that should spread to all parts of the organization and shouldn't be confined to just the IT space. Now I'm going to stop there and I'm going to throw out another question. I'll be interested. This is an interesting one for me. where have you seen an example of a non-IT agile team? So I think Dance is another chat storm.
Sorry, yeah, another chat storm. I was just deciding whether or not to. This would be a good point for you to answer Piers' question. Um, whilst Aaron said newsroom, he's given an example of agile non-IT team.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let people answer because Pia posed a really good question while she was talking, but I'd rather you come back to it at the end because I think there's some people in here I know that aren't in IT teams and would be looking at, well, they'd be thinking about how they'd apply that particular principle in their work.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got newsroom. Has anybody else got any examples of team environments where they've worked in an agile manner that hasn't been related to IT or development? PR from Renee. I mean, we've done it with analytics, like without the way we help organizations with their digital marketing. Sometimes we are super adaptive, like we put something out there, or with our design sprints, we create rapid prototypes so we can constantly change and adapt to the manner that we get, the feedback we get, so we can pivot very quickly. Manish has said post office, politics. Countries that are adapting to new things, they do not have predictability, especially in current scenarios. I'm wondering, how's everyone feel about the New Zealand proposing the 4-day work week? Yeah, I think she read the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss while she was off. I'm moving to New Zealand, Renee says. Building an aeroplane, stick to the tried and tested plan from Paul. Can we get Fiji in as well, asks Manish. Manish is down for the 4-day work week.
Is it? I think we should all move there. What's the Scandinavian countries? Is it Sweden? Sweden have all got 4 days as well, haven't they? Or is it Iceland?
They?
Yeah, it's one of those as well. They're 4 days. Maybe New Zealand would be better. I don't know. Are we ready to move on, Dan? Or?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Just add in if anything pops in your mind. It doesn't have to be ICT. And also, when it does pop in your mind, just think about what they're doing in regards to Finland. Renee's confirmed as the 4-day work week. Just think about some of the principles and the way the actions and the way they work together in regards to what you can draw out of that that's applicable to you. All right, I'll carry on, Dave. Go for it.
One of them was what to say, countries. Was that one or politics? What was there was one about politics or countries or something like that. They have to be adapted.
Somebody said politics currently changing. Politics, i.e., countries are adapting to new things. They do not have predictability, especially in current scenario.
Well, that's actually an interesting one because it's a split there, right? There is some countries that are thinking they can predict it. I hope there's no Americans on there, but you look at the Americans, right? It was they just tried to ignore it and they thought they had it under control, and they didn't realize they were actually dealing with a chaotic situation and tried to have a simple answer for it. Where I think you have other countries that have done, New Zealand have done extremely well by being adaptable and looking at it and basically just throwing out the rule book and shutting everything down. So I think some countries would be embracing that adaptability, where maybe some countries like the UK and America are basically still in that structured way. They're just not adapting to it. They're adapting to it more slowly than they would if they're being more responsive like other countries. Okay. So our next one, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Again, this is I like this one because negotiations are important, right? You can't run business without having some contracts, and these things need to be negotiated. But what we're looking for is the collaborations that really matters. And then it's through this collaboration, it is easier to meet the needs of customers and achieve better outcomes. We don't want to get bogged down talking and horse trading around stuff. And when we sat down face to face and looked at things, that's what agile teams like to do. We love to be face to face and collaborate with our customers at the business on a daily basis. And when I was looking at this one, an article popped up on Forbes where the Howard Sublett, who's the co-CEO of Scrum Alliance, was interviewed by Forbes, and he kind of said he had the article was saying why Agile is a mindset to get us through the COVID crisis. And he had 4 lessons from Agile for today and the new norm. But one of the things that came out from it, right, again, he had an interesting insight, and it's something that's actually validated in a recent workshop. And I'll cut a quote. I think Dan will share the article with you because it's an interesting read. But when all members of a team are remote, it actually helps with the interactions, right? In situations where a majority of members are in a conference room and the others are remote, there's a presence disparity can get in the way, right? Privileging those in the room. When all team members are called in, it can facilitate the collaboration because it equalizes the participants. Everyone in the room is on the same level, right? There's no power dynamics and things like that. And I think that's quite an interesting observation that actually by being remote, we've actually improved collaboration where you think it would be quite the opposite, right? Because we've done with those power dynamics in the room, right? The loudest voice, the driven development, or the hippo, right? The highest paid person's opinion. And moving forward, I think we could take a key lesson from that, right? And embrace that and find a way to ensure everyone is equal within the room. Now, I remember going back 10 years where I was working with getting the company was getting offshore, and we're bringing on teams from India and the Philippines. And you know, what happened there, and it's actually that we've evolved from there, was you would ask a question to a group of 10 people in the room in maybe India and the Philippines, and only one person would ask or answer, right? You wouldn't hear anything back from the rest of the room. And I think with this remote working and with quieting that loudest voice in the meeting, and by collaborating more, we're actually leveraging the collective wisdom of these individual experts and SMEs. Right? The more the team are being able to talk and have an equal voice. And, you know, and well, if the loudest voice continues, right, there's always the option of muting them, isn't it? Like, I could probably mute Dan now. So, and maybe not just tell them and let them speak away and then you guys can have a conversation. Or you can just kick them out of the meeting. Pretty hard to do that in a physical location though. And the other thing I like this, right, it's strange that before, and I don't know if there's any consultants on it, that consultants, it was seen as a taboo for consultants to work from home, right? I'm paying you such and such, I expect to see you on site every day and you can be there and I'm going to watch you and make sure you're delivering value. And now it's like, you know, every consultant I know is working from home. I don't know any consultant who's in the office. And what that's actually shown us there is actually a value add there because, and I'm talking about Innodev. Now, Renee works in Brisbane. I work in Adelaide. We have a team down in Melbourne. We use remote working all the time. We interact with each other all the time. Dan is like probably a remote facilitating guru, right? He's the man, and you know he adds value by that, right? You actually gain more because people are learning how to do remote facilitation, you know, and run workshops via those tools. And you actually get introduced to a few new tools. Let me just ask, how many people knew about Menti before this call?
I'll say yes.
Yeah, I'll fact check that later. But, so I'm gonna pause for a little bit and ask another question. And this is it. What has remote facilitation been like in your organization? And if you could sum up that experience in a couple of words.
So I've just added liberating.
Liberating.
Yeah.
Cool.
Empowering from Stephen. Post-it notes may be in trouble now. Yeah, tell me. I'm still, Aaron, they're all over my desk. My desk just looks like post-it note heaven. Managed is super flexible. I added the super. It has been accepted from Paul.
Yeah.
Has anyone struggled with the transition? Peers taken a while to settle. Oh, so she's talking about virtual post-it notes. But has anyone like found any negative aspects working in this way? More screen time. Yeah, that's the
more screen time. Who put in the deliberating? How has it been liberating for them? Is it just that you're more?
That was me.
That was you.
That was, yeah.
I don't care what you think.
Well, sure, this is you, not me. This is you. It's opened up opportunities, Stephen said, and I think that's a really good point in regards to our organisations. We realise that we're now a global company, like really a global company that we can deliver anywhere. We are mostly IT, Paul says, but the real challenges are with non-IT people that aren't accustomed to working in this way. The introverts and extroverts have a voice, especially in digital workspace tools, says Divya.
That's good. And again, it is a different way of facilitating and a different way of training, and it takes a lot of getting used to. Me and Renee have done we did a training for Digital Health Agency up in Queensland, and it was quite interesting. To compare to others, they had their screen turned on and everything like that. Where we've done some other training courses where I've sat through the whole training course and delivered it, and no one's actually turned on their video, right? And I've actually asked and requested a couple of times, and they still haven't done it. And I don't know about you, Dan, but like I find that soul destroying, right? Trying to just talking to a screen.
Yeah, well, that's why we don't do webinars if we can help it. And also something we've done is we've set out a playbook, a remote workshop playbook. So prior to the start of any engagement, we send that out. And then at the beginning of the first few workshops, we actually go through some of the key things in there. And that way we can set expectations early.
All right, I'll probably start on the last one, right? And I think this is pretty self-evident, isn't it? Right? I probably don't really need to explain this one, but responding to change over following a plan, right? Being more, that was a bit of a typo there, but being more emergent and develop a plan as you progress, based on evidence and experience that you've gained, right, is more purposeful than just following a predetermined plan and ignoring the signals that you're getting back. All right, and welcoming those changes, right? Because welcoming those changes, anyway, is actually the principle is giving you a competitive advantage. And from personal experience, well, Innodev has worked with 2 clients, right? One had a large scale portfolio of work to do over 2 years, 1 to 2 years, and the other one was kicking off a large transformation initiative. Now, what unfolded was the client with the change initiative, right? And they actually adapted quicker to the events. Right? While there was they had a plan in place for 18 months. It was very, very high level and never really flushed out. And they kind of planned in small 6-week windows. And that was where they were quickly able to pivot. And one of the quickest pivots they made was when they had to switch to remote working. And this was something that they'd never done before, and definitely never done on a large scale. And they actually thrived, right? They actually delivered better than they thought they would, and probably delivered better than they thought they would if they'd been on site. And the reason is because they didn't focus on the process and tools. If you go back to the other value, they focused on the people, right, and their interactions. They brought in health checks to make sure everyone was okay. They had regular check-ins. They had meetings that, maybe if they went for an hour to have a break and then they'd continue after the break. But the thing as well, they had those small planning windows, right? So it's easier to throw out a plan that's only 6 weeks, right? It's a lot harder to throw out a plan that you go 1 to 2 years, and it's very detailed because people hang on to it, right? Now, the other client who had all the conditions that you think they would need for success to thrive in the remote working, right? They had multiple sites around the country. They had done remote working before. They had meetings with those remote sites, and they actually just hit the pause button, right? you know, while the shift to remote working was a factor, you know, and you know, the other disturbance in the marketplace caused by COVID, what I think was happening with the leadership there was a realization that that whole program of work that they planned could not be completed given the constraints of remote working and the new ways of working they'd had to do over the next couple of months. And they had no idea when it would end. So they were like, well, we need to completely replan. So they just basically threw the plan out, they stopped. And I think that what I've heard from some reports is the plan that they made in January, which is now May, is gone. And then they start a massive big replanning again. And they haven't learned the lesson, right? They haven't learned the lesson that that 1 to 2 year massive detailed plan is just not viable anymore. Okay. The other thing is that, right, there's other organizations that have these 5-year plans. And I said some of them just went by like there was just a pebble in the road. It didn't really disrupt them. You know, they're hiring people and moving forward, they're kicking off new projects. But the problem with that is, and this is the thing, while they're doing all that planning and that 5-year plan, that 5-year plan is potentially not valid anymore. It's not feasible. The landscape has changed. If they'd done it in January, it's completely different now. What they were planning for to happen in May and June, maybe the end of the year, is probably not going to happen anymore. Right? People are actually changing the way they work. People are adapting the way they interact with businesses now. Right? So I think those companies that think they're, oh yeah, we're all good, we have a 5 plan, we're moving forward, I think they're going to have a serious, they do a serious sense check of the plan that they have. Because the goals they're looking to achieve might have completely moved and are no longer the goals that they want to achieve. So I think if they keep following that plan they had, they're just not going to be viable to their customers, right? They're not going to be relevant anymore because they've completely missed the new wave, or, you know, what's the next big thing. So I'll be interested to hear from you guys, and probably another question is, how has your organization responded to COVID-19? Have you felt that they followed the plan, or have they quickly responded to the change?
So that's a question to everyone.
Yeah.
Have they even had a plan? So just whilst everyone's filling that in, on all these 4 things, there are good examples of accepting them. But there is also financial contraction and leadership changes that pull in the other direction of central direction. Processes and thinking of people as expensive resources. Some of these folks, they deem success as sticking to the old plan as much as possible. That's from Aaron.
Yeah.
Pia said, responded to change and communicated well on the new plan.
Yeah. To Aaron's point, people go to what they know in times of stress. They feel comfortable with what they know. And you can choose to ignore it, but it's there, right? And you know, having your comfort blanket of your Gantt chart that detailed out what everyone's going to do for the next hour, for the next, you know, or for the next 12 months, is not really feasible, right? I don't think people work that way. They can hold on to it, but they're only putting off the inevitable, right? At some stage, disruption is going to happen. And if, as I said, if they don't understand that how to deal with chaos is taking small steps and learning, then it will no longer become viable or relevant to their customers. Customers will go somewhere else. You know, how many organizations have, you know, there's like, I say hundreds and hundreds of organizations that have ignored disruption and signals from the marketplace and then been, you know, absolutely caned by a competitor. Even a small startup, right? We've got that disruption on the horizon where they can easily get from the cloud this storage and space that they need, the processing power, and then they can do some good stuff. And it's like the fintechs as one example. You know, Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency is another thing on the horizon. You know, for things people like SAPN, there's the peer-to-peer trading and the batteries and all that's coming in. And then people don't adapt to that. Like, you can ignore it, and you might have had a monopoly, but it's only so long that you're going to keep that monopoly. The time is ticking. So, and I think it takes a certain kind of leader to look at that and to lead companies and organizations into the future. Like, it's a hard thing to say, but sometimes some companies have to go because they've stuck with that whole thing, and some old leaders have to go. That's actually one of the things Lisa said. When I think back about it, one of the comments that she made is, these leaders got organizations to a period in time, and where it was more, maybe a little more stable, but we have increasing levels of complexity and uncertainty at the moment. So it's calling for a different type of leader. So it might be a case to respectfully usher them, out the door and thank them for the work that they've done, but we need to take a new direction.
So we've got some comments in there. So just whilst, so Pia has said that her CEO has commented that their organisation has delivered more change in 2 weeks than we would normally take 10 years, essentially by leaders getting out of the way and letting frontline to do what they needed to do. And she's looking forward to seeing this going forward. Stephen, reacted to change would be a better way of describing it, but initial responses saw us care more about people coming together and then finding a way to work, as it has looked like we are coming out of a crisis, have seen old behaviours returning. And then Aki have just started out, so I was beginning to learn what we do. COVID-19 was the ultimate changing plan, but we hunkered down fairly quickly and planned for any new plan that could change at any time over the next several months. Cool. All right, Dave, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just going to tie it up a little bit, and it's probably just what I was talking about earlier. My final thought, and I want just the takeaway, is it's probably what to Aaron's point is the most organizations today still favor that bureaucracy and hierarchical structure, right, over becoming more adaptable and developing greater levels of resilience, right? It's because it was what they know, right? They don't know any different, and quite honestly, it's probably worked for them, right? They've been successful for the last 100 years, 50 years or whatever, right? They wouldn't be around still if they weren't. And crises like COVID, well, makes this, these pain points that have make this painfully obvious, right? You can actually see it that these organizations are just sticking to the plan. It's a very deterministic viewpoint where they think, well, yeah, we're fine. And while this pain is is here, and it's going to be a relatively short period of time, right? In a company's long history, and when it goes, it's forgotten. And I can think that, man, if we were to meet back in a year's time, people would probably go, oh yeah, I remember COVID, and we got through it, and that's it. And there may be some companies still not around, but there'll be something else they blame why they folded. Maybe it was COVID, maybe it was something else. The problem is, what's going to happen in the future is these crises are going to become more frequent, right? We're already seeing these things, disruption. Maybe it's not COVID, maybe it's something else, okay? And I think by adopting these agile values, right, and that mindset of, people over process and tools, delivering outcomes of our comprehensive documentation, all these things, right, responding to change or following a plan, will actually help them, right, to be more resilient for the next crisis, and create a system within the organization that's more adaptable. It's more focused on people who actually do the work and deliver it, and again, be more purposeful in the delivery of value. And I think there was, given an excellent example of that, is there was some decision making is always very slow in large organizations. It's one of the things that holds back many delivery of value in many projects, and it's one of those things in the value chain that as an agile player, we try to challenge and try and speed up decision making by prioritization models, wherever else. But think about it, how quickly did organizations make a decision about remote working? Really quickly, a lot faster than I think they've ever made a decision in their life before. All right, and the ones that did it early probably adapted a lot quicker and learned from it. Over those organizations that I know there's still a couple that are still bringing people into work, right, over the period, and I don't think they've seen any uptake in their performance or profitability. So I think this is what I say is this is what, like, organizations are built for predictability and output. And now they have to change to be more adaptable and look for purposely delivering outcomes and value. And that's about it, guys. Happy to answer questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to throw the floor open to some questions. And whilst I give you a chance to do that, I'm going to just revisit I'm just going to stop yours. Awesome, bring us all back. So whilst people bring their questions to the table, I'm just going to revisit one of your Agile values, working software over comprehensive documentation. A question from Pia. Is there an example of how this applies in non-IT where the documentation is the deliverable? And she expanded on that to say she's applying Agile in project management of improvement and a new design process deliverable that includes documentation. And she was wondering if it is the level of documentation that needs to be agreed up front with the customer of what's the value add. So I guess she's, how do you apply this principle when documentation is the deliverable?
Well, there's the rare occasion where documentation is of value. So again, what they said was working software overtake. So what you're actually delivering is an outcome. So I think, and that's the documentation, right? So again, that's of value to the customer or whoever you're giving it to. So it's a trade-off, right? It's not a no documentation or anything. The documentation is the outcome that the customers want, and there's value in giving it. The question is, how much should you give and how much time should you spend on it? And that's probably be determined by what the customer thinks is valid for you to achieve that outcome that they want. If you can get through, if you had a document and your one thing was deliver a document, and you can deliver everything that the customer wants in 100 pages of a 200-page document, why would you need to deliver the next 100 pages? And that's the kind of conversations I think you should be having, right? If it solves their problem or addresses the issue they have or the pain point they have, then why deliver the next 100 pages? And when you have conversations like that, then that becomes, a bit more collaborative because you're going back and forth, you're developing trust with them because they realize that you're just not out there to make money out of them. You're actually looking to build a partnership with them. Does that answer your question?
2 thumbs up. Death by documentation. Nobody likes it. I'm looking, there's not many questions left, but you will get a chance because I'm going to share some links. So first up, I'd really like to thank Dave for sharing with us today. So thank you so much. You kept it really simple, really neat. We've got a couple of people clapping. I can see Stephen's actually just got his avatar up and it's kind of scared me before because he was just smiling and not blinking at me. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. Thank you. The chat's just been brilliant and participating in the Mentimeter. It was really good to get your,
one last question on the Mentimeter. Can you share your screen?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do that. Won't be a second. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen. Whilst you guys answer that, I'm going to close off. So, thank you for joining us and bringing your energy and enthusiasm. You can see the screen on Mentimeter and you can see your responses. Please, 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 if you could give us some feedback from today's session. I've just popped the link in the chat, so please go on there. It will take you 2 minutes just to kind of give us some feedback from today's session, especially in regards to what you're interested in learning. You're part of the community as well, so we're trying to improve all the time. We've got some fantastic people coming up, and I'll share who our next person is in a moment. If you would like to connect with Dave and learn more about Innodev, I'm just about to put their details in the chat window. And awesome, I can just see the things coming through on the Menti. So I've shared with you Dave's LinkedIn profile, so you can connect with Dave and ask him any questions beyond this, because I think he really struggled tonight to keep things as simple as possible and not overcomplicate things, which I'm really grateful for, because I've been in the rooms with Agile practitioners that overcomplicate just to make themselves look like a magician.
Problem, right? That's the problem. They overcomplicate it, and then people turn off. And I said,
no, it's really good the way you broke it down to 4 simple values. On there, that link as well. Dave's really active with his blogs, and I love them. I think they're great in regards to what Dave writes about. I can tell you, as one of the most learned persons I know, his book collection is of envy to me. I've also got the podcast that him and Renee run called Rethink Everything. Their hashtags move forward. So maybe if you are on social and you see anything, you could put that hashtag up there. That's cool, and give them a listen, because they're really sharing some great concepts and bringing in some fantastic speakers, as well as the Innodev website. It'd be remiss of me not to mention. If you wish to connect with the ever-growing FON community, FON Future Now, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to just share this now, and I'll add you to the group if you're not already. Oops, my apologies. I've just completely messed up. So I've just been sharing with Dave, not with everyone. So let me just go back up.
Thanks. I already know that information, Dan. You know that, don't you?
All right. So first up, I'm going to share with you the feedback form. I'm going to share with you all of Dave's links. You most probably wondered what I was talking about. So this is how you get in touch with Dave and Innodev. So that's his blog, their podcast, the Innodev website. Also, like I said before, if you want to join the group, you're not already a member of the Future of Now group, we're on LinkedIn. It's a private group. We don't let everybody in. So we're sharing content all the time and telling you all about new events. Just pop that on there. To learn more about More Space for Light and what we do, I've just popped the links again in the chat box. I'm having a chat storm all by myself at the moment. Finally, to learn more about the organisations connected to this event, both Mural, which is an online collaboration board, as well as Spaces, which have globally located co-working spaces. Links here, super relevant. Again, as well, if you would have something to share and would like the opportunity to speak, please reach out to us at FON at More Space for Light with FON speaker as your subject line.